This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Hello and welcome to the big fight. The Anna Hazare movement has perhaps been the biggest theme of this year. And now there's a fresh twist that seems to be taking place, with many of the members of Team Anna under attack. Kiran Bedi for inflated bills, Arvind Kejriwal, taxes, Prashant Bhushan already been attacked for that those who demand scrutiny from others must be completely open for scrutiny themselves. Which of these views is actually correct? Joining us on the big fight today, Renuka Chaudhary joining us. Renuka, you're almost becoming a regular now on the big fight, I have to say. Medha Patkar also joining us. Ma'am, it's a pleasure and honor always to have you with us here on the big fight. And joining us here in the studio, Shazia Ilmi, member of Anna's movement. Great to have you with us. Dilip Padgaonkar, consulting editor of the Times of India. We have Kabir Bedi, somebody else who's been very closely associated with Anna Hazare's movement, been here on the big fight also talking about it. And Maxwell Pereira, former Joint Commissioner of the Delhi Police. Thanks, sir, for being with us as well. Shazia, is this a smear campaign and some things, people out to get Team Anna, or at the end of the day, have certain members of Team Anna done things that they really shouldn't have done? Especially if they're asking questions of others.
I think both are true. There is a vilification campaign, there is a smear campaign, and right from the doctored CDs to the income tax notices sent to Arvind Kejriwal, and then the new inflated travel bill story. What I feel is that whoever talks about as a part of crusade against corruption must come clean, clarify their stand, and must not be beyond reproach when it comes to personal integrity. But also we must see that the timing is suspect. That all these bills are being dug out of nowhere, something pending for the last 10 years, so to speak. So this makes you wonder. So I think while the personal credibility of Team Anna members would undergo some kind of a dent or would get damaged, but they must also clarify.
The timing is suspect. Would you go along with that, or at the end of the day, when somebody is standing and saying we are demanding scrutiny, should they be prepared for the fact that someone's going to come and scrutinize them?
Well, I certainly don't agree with what you've just heard. Because if you throw dirt or muck at someone, that someone's going to throw dirt and muck back at you. All right? You openly stigmatize the entire political class. You rode the high moral hobby horse. You galvanize an entire nation on the strength of this great moral crusade against corruption. People hit back. So Is
there something wrong with hitting back?
I think if someone hits you, the others are totally entitled to hit back. You should have seen the time when someone like Kiran Bedi was there, chastising the political class, making no distinction between politicians, chastising the bureaucracy. They've hit back.
All right. Well, we did ask both Arvind Kejriwal and Kiran Bedi for come for this, so we're not able to do so. But Medha Patkar, let me just get your sense on this. Do you think in some way Kiran Bedi or Arvind Kejriwal or the others in the Team Anna have done something wrong, or is this a smear campaign?
I don't know. I mean, I think much more facts would only take us to the logical end. But I would say that all of the committee members would agree that if there is anything done which is illegal, one should accept the fault and be ready for the consequences. As far as the allegations of the common funding of the movement is concerned, that was discussed in the Raleigh-Ganj Siddhi meeting, and the audit was concluded, is yet to be concluded, but it was decided on. And once that is out, anyone will be available for comments.
Kabir, let me get you in on this. Where do you stand?
Well, what I see is the oldest political trick in the book, which means if you are being questioned by somebody and pushed against the wall by somebody and you don't like it, you attack the credibility of the questioner. So I think that's essentially what's being done. They have had their pride wounded and they are fighting back through investigation. But let me also say, it may not just be the government itself. It may not be the Congress itself. There are people across the entire political spectrum who are corrupt. across the entire government who are corrupt, who are very threatened by this movement, and will go to any length to scuttle it by questioning the credibility of the people that are involved in that movement. However...
But you seem to be saying that there is no reason to question. So I'm just going to be blunt out here. Is there something wrong in this case, in your mind?
You know...
That travel bills are inflated for whatever the reason and then it's passed on to an NGO. Are these practices that, let's say, a politician had done? Would the same team Anna been pointing fingers and saying this is wrong?
You can always find something wrong with somebody. There's a rule that says if you, in your home, employ anybody and pay them more than 5,000 rupees, you have to register yourself as an employer and pay a profession tax. I wonder how many people in this country who pay their domestics more than that go and do that. You can always find something wrong.
Fine.
It's the extent. And secondly, you have to look at the larger agenda here. Yes, you can say the issue of Kiran Bedi's tickets are debatable. They're not inflated travel bills. She was entitled to that ticket. She saved the money, whether she put it in her pocket or in the NGO. It doesn't worry me.
It doesn't worry you?
It doesn't worry me. She was entitled to that ticket.
Okay. Does it worry you at all? Does it worry? I mean, he's saying it doesn't matter whether the NGO went into her own pocket. For someone who stands for probity, which she does, and frankly, I think very few people would question Kiran Bedi's, reputation, the rest of it, but he says he doesn't have a problem with it. If somebody is quoting a certain travel bill and there's an excess out there, that person either pockets it or passes it on to an NGO. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. Hold on. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. I'm saying it doesn't worry me because it is a ticket she was entitled to, and if she saved some money and put that in an NGO, it's not a big deal.
Okay.
What's being made the big deal is the credibility of people to discredit the entire movement. That's the larger agenda we have to watch out for.
Let me just see if somebody is worried by it. Are you worried by it?
Vikram, at the outset, let me say this much. Kiran has been a valued, wonderful colleague of mine, and it wouldn't be right for me to discuss her as far as this is concerned.
He said it doesn't worry him if something like this happens.
What would she be charged with? What would she be charged with? What would be the charge?
No, there is no charge in this. As Shazia said very clearly, it's a question of moral turpitude. Whether it comes within the bounds of
there is a question of moral turpitude into your mind in this?
In a way, generically, yes, because one has to see it from a wider perspective, because here, first of all, I am a gallantry awardee too, and I wonder from where and how this was dug up, because for the last at least 10 years or more, I don't think any of us had a chance to use this allowance of, getting a benefit through gallantry, because the government gives with one hand and takes with the other hand.
How did she manage it?
I don't think she managed it, because when the low-cost airlines came in, the fare that we would get, the 25% that we would have to pay, was more than the low-cost fare that was there. So it was not possible for us to...
Renuka Chaudhary, let me just get you in. Is this a dirty tricks campaign that is taking place in a very clever, systematic manner against Team Anna? Or are you to some extent saying that, those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones?
At the end of the day, all of us were collectively fighting what we call corruption. And each one's perception mattered in this and the relevance of it. Now, when you come into this arena and you do politics, it goes with the turf. We don't have to do any kind of dirty tricks department, much as everyone wants to believe. But it must be appearing like that. It must be appearing like that. But the fact of the matter is that when you come in, I've always said this on my personal capacity level, that politics is the most transparent system. You cannot keep a secret. Nothing is held back. And so when you come into that arena, whether you're doing direct electoral politics or indirect, this goes with the turf. Okay. Hundreds of people are going to come forward and volunteer. I just heard the gentleman saying, yeah, why should we? We have other issues to deal with. We really can't go nitpicking on issues like this, and we didn't.
I think when the plutocracy or the ruling class, when it gets, when there's a question mark raised and the status quo is really questioned, it rattles a lot of people. And this includes not just the ruling party and the entire political class which this bill intends to take on, but also bureaucracy, also apologists for the Congress government and the spin doctors, also people in media. So I think it's a multi-pronged strategy to scuttle the bill, to obfuscate from the central issue of Lokpal. It's really sad that nobody is discussing the General Lokpal bill, the demerits and merits of it, or the contentious issues of it, but discussing Kiran Bedi's inflated travel bills. I mean, it's just it's like being dragged into this cesspool of inanity.
About this.
And precious national time and TV time is being wasted to discuss.
You can't do this when you have transgressed. You have transgressed
there has been no
your own
transgression
agenda
of
and you have dabbled in politics. So when you have come into that...
We all got together on a single mandate which was to have an effective
You can't say that 5 of you can't get together and say that what we say is law and what we do is law. We change the goalposts as it comes along. We will decide whether we'll do this. You knew you were doing very clever manipulation when you were talking about Hisar elections. You knew you were being manipulated.
Hisar election is a
you
matter
were not being honest in your intent. And so when you
why,
did that,
why did the team Anna have to jump the gun? Why didn't they wait till, you know, next parliament session when it had to come on?
Okay,
yeah.
Kabir, you were here when we were having an earlier big fight on it. One of the question was, who are the people, who is going to decide it? Is it the word of these 5 people? Should it be considered sacrosanct, or are there other views which should be taken? I guess one of the reasons why a lot of people, especially in the government would be having a sense of glee is to say, look, even these 5 idols have feet of clay.
Well, naturally they'll say that. Naturally they'll say that. At the same time, I say, nobody has a monopoly on truth. Nobody has come down to the mountain like Moses saying, these are the 10 commandments, you've got to follow them. What Anna Hazare Sahab did was to bring the issue to a boil, made sure that the fundamental principles of the Jan Lokpal bill were actually discussed in Parliament, a resolution was passed in Parliament, something that everybody at the time said was impossible, it was unprecedented, it was not doable, it was done. So, what we have to keep in mind is keep your eye on the ball.
Right.
And realize that this is a movement that...
But it did get personalized, right? And Mehta Bhatkar, I have to ask you that on the question of Team Anna itself, are you seeing differences, fragmentation, a certain amount of rift that is coming, but may perhaps take away from the entire Jan Lokpal movement itself?
I won't deny that some difference of opinion is there because Rajendra Singh has expressed it openly in the public more than anyone else, but I think there is no question of just fragmentation on the issues such as Jan Lokpal and the corruption related issues. We are all one. There is no difference of opinion. Unitedly it will be presented to the standing committee. Unfortunately, there is no doubt that getting involved into a number of things, including the intervention into politics, has somehow pushed the agenda of campaign on the details of Jan Lokpal to somewhat black front. And that we discussed in the core committee, we will further be discussing because now the Hisar results and the analysis of the same is out. But this kind of targeting individual members is also deliberately done, and yet we will be accountable to that.
And what has been vitiating this debate are conspiracy theories. All right, there were conspiracy theories about the entire Anna movement. It is backed by this organization, so-and-so is behind it, corporate lobbies, etc., etc.
RSS,
BJP, Hindutva forces, that's one set of conspiracy
And now
theories.
there are conspiracy theories around
there are conspiracy theories around what is happening individually to these people. The sooner we move away from conspiracy theories and focus, for example, we've just heard Shazia saying that all this is meant to take away attention from the Lokpal bill. I don't see that happening at all. There is a resolution of Parliament. All parties are agreed that they must get together. It is being discussed and it's going to be brought up in the winter session. Where is the question of detracting attention? Beware of conspiracy theories on both sides.
In a strange way, both Team Anna and the government are now on the same side of the fence. They both have committed themselves to a strong Lokpal bill, which is huge. The opposition has pledged support as well. So, in what I call Anna versus Government Act 3, there's going to be a major polarization of opinions, because if the government is perceived as being insincere, they will lose the election, they will lose power. Okay. If Anna Hazare, on the other hand, decides to declare nuclear war, go on to fast unto death over issues that the larger public does not think is important enough and is blocking an Lokpal bill, he will lose popularity. So in a sense, the issue now is larger than the participants.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Just want to ask you another question, Dilip, is how far is this question of and the process of scrutiny going to go? Because there are two other, one is, should this scrutiny now be extended to anybody who's asking questions? I mean, the media, for example, is the media going to come under increased scrutiny? And perhaps, it should as well, or anybody else who's asking questions. And also, is there a time when this is going to go too far and actually lead to policy paralysis because everyone's too scared to take a decision? You want to comment on either of those? Let's start with all people who are asking questions being scrutinized.
Anyone in public life will have to undergo scrutiny. The Anna Hazare campaign, in my view, began to become shaky when it entered electoral politics. Had it stayed on the margins.
Yeah, totally. That's what I said. We were all, absolutely aghast when the political side, the Hisar elections were brought in to play in this game. We all felt why the movement was going so well.
When he entered the Hisar bypoll, I wrote to him on his blog questioning the wisdom of that movement. I said, the government have done what you asked for. They are debating the issue. They have not come out with their proposal yet. Why is this campaign turned political?
Let me turn to somebody who was here just after that happened and spoke eloquently on the subject and on a big fight. Renuka, the fact that what Maxwell, Dilip are saying is that perhaps a lot of this fragmentation started, you could have argued it started earlier, but really when they made the steps into electoral politics with the Hisar by-election.
The biggest injustice they have actually done is that they have ruined the platform on which the discussion of corruption had come. Having said all of that, you mustn't forget the NAC had taken up this issue. The government did address the issue, and perhaps this is the first time ever a government, even before Anna went on to the fast business, that we said, come and join us and let's discuss it. This was put in public domain, and when all this was happening, they go and do a Hisar on everyone.
No, they did a Hisar on you, and they also did show that perhaps it does make an impact.
And they lost their credibility because they keep changing the goalposts.
The bill and supporters of the Lokpal bill might have a problem, as I've just heard from Maxwell ji and Kabir ji. I can just give you the rationale behind this. Because this is a ruling party and this was a big parliamentary election happening and the only one happening before the winter session, the need was to have some kind of pressure on this government, which is the ruling party.
Mera Patkar, two questions. One, the greater scrutiny that might now come on everybody, and secondly, what was just said about perhaps the fragmentation in Team Anna or the differences really accelerated with the decision with the Hisar by-election.
About the scrutiny, I've said it should and it may be carried out, and that would take the whole issue to its logical end and then settle there. And I think each member is prepared for that, and there is no question of hiding anything or avoiding it. The second part, the Hisar, is a kind of intervention into electoral politics. Now, all the non-electoral political movements take decision about the ways and means to do this. Not everyone really get into the campaign, but many organizations do. So this has not happened for the first time. Shazia has given the rationale very well and explained it. I won't go into that. I would only say that still, even after the Hisar election, we must sit down and review the whole thing, evaluate it. Because who has won the battle is also equally important.
I'm merely saying, look, you're quite right in your earlier remark to say the Congress candidate lost his deposit. All right, and therefore the effect Anna, whatever you might call, was there. At the same time, the person who did win that election, will the Anna team say that he is a paragon of virtue?
Yeah. Ask that question.
I'm asking that question.
Did you endorse
the winning candidate?
There is a fresh slew of accusations, and we keep getting that. If Team Anna or the Anna factor did not matter, why are they being attacked? Surely Congress feels rattled or troubled.
He's asking you
but I'm not answering that.
I'm asking a straight question. You campaigned for clean candidates in Hisar. One of these candidates won.
I will answer.
Is that gentleman who won a paragon of
No,
virtue.
absolutely not. And not once did we say vote for Kuldeep Bishnoi, and he is a paragon of virtue. We said something to the effect of that because it's a ruling party and because other parties have given a written assurance and we can hold them accountable to it later, please do not vote for Congress and choose another candidate.
But Shazia,
even if let's presume
okay,
the
so
Congress
let me
candidate.
Who are the other candidates?
Let me just extend
Let's
Dilip's question a little further.
Yeah.
Supposing tomorrow there's an election that is taking place in Uttar Pradesh, and there are three complete and total scoundrels, three of the most corrupt people you could possibly imagine. They are contesting the election. The fourth person is a Congress person. You would still say you must vote for another corrupt people and not this, in the interest of defeating
There are
corruption.
different ways to fight corruption. What was our way? Our way is to have a Jan Lokpal bill in place or an effective anti-graft law in place.
Even
we
if it
can't
means
fight the
voting for a
system
corrupt politician.
in a vacuum or in generic terms. It is a very specific focused strategy. Please understand. Let me explain. Let me try at least. So it's very, very clear. Even if Mayawati himself, now not that she wants to, or Mulayam Singh Yadav, that he would ever want to have a Jan Lokpal bill in place, but even if they wanted to, they would not be able to bring it on their own steam.
So
the
it's
only
okay
party whose privilege and prerogative and responsibility it is actually the Congress party. So we can only put pressure on Congress party.
So
how
it's
can we say
okay
don't vote
to ask
for any...
so you're saying you would ask somebody to vote for a corrupt candidate so long as...
Can I tell you something? If Anna Hazare were to say don't vote for any corrupt candidate, believe me, it would have been we would have been called anti-elections and anti-electoral politics.
No, but also, by the same logic,
there would have been no candidate to choose from.
I would like to somewhat differ because although what Shazia is saying has been the rationale behind this campaign, I personally feel, along with some of the members, that this part needs to be further discussed. The relationship between the electoral politics and the movement, and there is nothing to hide about it. And that is because you are right that we have to place the criteria at much higher level. Beyond the choosing the person who is supporting the Jan Lokpal bill, we should also be having other criteria because the movement also is having a wider vision.
That's exactly, Medaji, that's exactly the point I was trying to make, that surely there has to be some other criteria.
And
that will be discussed. That will be discussed.
But I must say that there has to be introspection within the team as to how we're going to foray further in the electoral scheme of things.
Fair enough. Renuka Chaudhary, let me quickly get you and then I have to take a break.
I'm only asking Team Anna one thing. If you want to enter electoral politics, learn to be accountable and take the responsibility. Arvind Kejriwal should have contested Hisar. Because according to them, they're all doodh ka dhula hua. So that was the best option to offer the voter. How can you tell a voter that, you know, this is the person you will not vote for and the rest are all because they've given it to us in writing? You don't think that's cheating the people? It's a completely dishonest manipulation where you say because the legal veracity of that written word has nothing in it.
Is it true?
Of course, it's his village. He should have contested from there.
It's from close to Bhiwani.
And you must learn to take accountability and responsibility. You don't want that.
Okay, Kabir, let me get you in.
Saying is, if you will activists, everybody from media should not ask questions from politicians who win time after time only because they have no right.
That's not quite what she's saying.
She's saying for next elections.
I think the disturbing,
this is absolute bankruptcy of morality.
The disturbing part in all this is you want a Lokpal bill, so do we. We want a strong one. Yeah. But the way to reach that goal, you will take support from communal elements, criminal elements, casteist elements, crooked people, because your intent is to defeat that party which has not given you something in writing. All right, I find this absurd logic.
No, this is not logic. The party which can actually do it in the parliament.
But look at what happened.
It's just 104 seats out of 545 seats.
Look at what happened.
It's okay if you're taking a support of a corrupt person, a criminal person, a murderer. That's all okay as long as he gives it to you in writing.
We are fighting it together on the issue of corruption. Why should corruption be pitted against communalism at this point of time? Anybody who raises a voice against corruption is
so two side different views. Anybody made that and Shazia.
This argument they've been repeating themselves like this all the time.
This is cleverness.
Kabir, which side do you stand?
No, my take on this is very simple. The issue is an anti-corruption bill. Whoever supports it, whether it's the RSS, whether it's the BJP, whether it's the communists,
the underworld.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If they let the mafia support the anti-corruption bill. And the point is, the votes are needed to get that through, etc. Now, as far as Hisar is concerned, I don't think we should spend too much time discussing that. I think it was an error. I think they've learnt from that as well. but more importantly, that's over, that's history. The question is, in future elections, the larger agenda is also not just the General Lokpal Bill, but also electoral reform, which involves the right to reject and the right to recall.
Fair enough. Fair enough. One of the things that we are coming up with is the law of unintended consequences. Those who are asking questions are suddenly finding themselves being questioned. There are other unintended consequences also that are taking place, and I said it on one of the shows earlier. There are actually large parts of Uttar Pradesh where corruption has actually gone up. At least the rates have gone up. The people who would ask for a 3 lakh rupee bribe are now asking for a 7 lakh rupee bribe because they're saying risk badh gaya hai. So you must pay us more. So that's one unintended consequence. In other areas, there's people are not willing to take any decisions because they are scared of scrutiny. What are the other unintended consequences we might be faced with? Let's turn our attention to that when we come back after this break. Welcome back to the Big Fight. So we are seeing one of the unintended consequences of the entire Anna Hazare movement. Those who ask the most questions are now finding themselves having questions asked to them. Shazia, any comments on the other one which I mentioned? That people, instead of asking for 4 lakh rupee bribes in some areas, are now asking for 7 lakh rupee bribes because they're saying risk badh gaya hai.
But I know a lot of people who are actually looking into themselves and wondering whether they should be giving a bribe or taking a bribe. I think the whole issue has center stage corruption, and we're actually questioning it. We're discussing things like lower bureaucracy, high bureaucracy, judiciary, which we've never done in public domain. So I'm looking at the positive side of this movement.
Are people paying more bribes because the rates have gone up or less?
Two things happen. One is risk is involved. And the risk factor has gone up thanks to this movement. So I'm not surprised.
That's a good thing. I'm glad the risk has gone up.
So
what I'm appalled is that people are still asking for money for it.
I'm glad. I'm saying the risk has gone up.
Premium. There's a risk premium now.
The risk has also gone up thanks to RTI. Also. All right. The other factor, however, is people are unwilling to take decisions.
Now that's a more serious issue.
Because the minute you put something down on paper and you say, I take responsibility for what I've written, and then you fear the Anna effect, the RTI effect, and so on, that is something which, to my mind, is dangerous.
Okay.
Because it freezes the decision-making mechanism.
I think that's a crucial point which I want to come to in some length, because I think that is something serious that we need to worry about. Kabir.
Yes, there is that effect that you have to worry about. The fear factor has now come in, etc. But one of the great unintended consequences of the General Lokpal Bill, according to me, will be that an enormous number of government servants who have become very rich in the process of being government servants will simply resign because they can't take the heat and they can't take the RTI and they can't take the scrutiny, creating enormous numbers of vacancies in government, leading to far more employment of the unemployed.
That's a possibility, but Maxwell, can I just ask you what Dilip alluded to, and which I fear may well be happening in some parts, is not just the corrupt bureaucrats or the corrupt politicians. Those who are actually honest are hesitating to take decisions or to take actions or to sign any piece of paper or to put their initials on a file because they say, we're not even getting something for this, we're actually honest. And yet, our name is on that. Tomorrow there'll be some question, there'll be an RTI, there'll be a thing. Why should I put my
What should the honest be afraid of?
That is
actually because you could still be asked questions.
So?
No. Why did you take this decision and not that? If it's a defense purchase, why did you buy this and not that?
We are slightly digressing.
There's nothing to fear.
Hear me out, Vikram. I'm not concerned only about that. You know, this is, first of all, I don't agree with all three of them. That is just a wishful thinking. Corruption is rampant as it was before. If somebody is making an excuse of asking for more, yes, you know, fly his flag sort of a thing, but corruption is continuing.
You're not showing any signs of it lessening?
Total wishful thinking. It is what you expect. Somebody comes and tells you, or aaj se maine paisa lena band kiya, you believe him. Okay, you feel very happy. And believe me, corruption is rampant. It's going on as it is. And you ask the common people if they step in anywhere, whether there is corruption or not. Let me tell you, it is there, and nothing will happen. Second point I want to make. Let me be very. Give me a minute. You're talking of the Lokpal Bill. This country has the best laws in the world. Okay, all the laws are on the shelf. We are very good enactors of law, but we are not enforcers of the law. And being an enforcement man all my life, I know it. Okay, we are unable to enforce the law, and you mean to say a Jan Lokpal bill is going to end corruption? I don't think so. Let me tell you, you will not be able to enforce it unless you work on the modalities of enforcement. You have no enforcement machinery in this country. You have nothing at all. You just keep on enacting laws and not building up your enforcement machinery.
Meera Patkar,
what exactly?
Meera Patkar, you heard what Maxwell said. Two questions. To your mind, has corruption changed in any way after the Anna movement? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? And secondly, how are the laws going to be enforced?
You see, I talk about only unintended consequences. The intended consequences included, and it does include even today, empowerment and further empowerment of people. Participation in the lawmaking process is one means to that end, but also people now trying to show courage to catch the dishonest person. And analogy with the RTI is that.
But may that be the question is, are you seeing it happening on the ground, or is it not happening on the ground? Maxwell Pereira is saying that there's no change at all on the ground.
There is not going to be a magical change, even in terms of lawmaking, because the SEZ kinds of acts are immediately passed without discussion in the parliament. This kind of pro-people and anti-corruption act will not be so easily passed. And that's why if he is worried about the corruption that continues irrespective of the movements, then he should be a part of either this or some other stronger movement, not condemn the movement. Because the movement is trying to do its best.
In this entire debate, the one thing that's really caused me enormous concern is this business of pro-people, anti-corruption, tarnishing the entire thing, the political class. Somewhere down the line, there is an anti-democracy feeling that seeps through. You talk pro-people, you tarnish the entire political class, you tarnish the entire bureaucracy. What you do, in fact, is to demonize politics, and therefore democratic politics. I think one's got to be extremely careful that your pro-people rhetoric must not mask a profoundly anti-democratic sentiment.
I feel that these movements are actually the next step in democracy. I think with the rise of social media, with the rise of media in general, there is a voice that people are getting, which is not just dependent on people standing up and making speeches in Parliament, if they're allowed to, which is not just dependent on newspaper reports. People have found ways of expressing themselves in multiple forums, and I see this as the next movement in democracy, and will have to be the next wave.
It's of course going to take a long time before 1 billion people can actually vote using social media. Most people are not exposed to social media.
Well, there's 600 million mobile phones in this country, or halfway there.
On social media. Okay, Renuka Chaudhary, one of the things that we're looking at, are you in any way seeing a fear psychosis? But this is one of the consequences that people are slightly concerned about. Have you been noticing that at all? Some of your chief ministers, I believe, for example, have not signed a certain file in like 5 months because they're so scared.
Vikram, all that is part of a transition and growth. It is the way forward in a growing economy and a growing democracy like us, and we are the leaders in this entire region, if we have to remember, and India has dealt with issues. It's particular to every generation that a reform comes in, and we'll go ahead. Nobody's going to be this. If it is a fear and if there is a hesitation, it's a natural thing for a while till the system works out the kinks. So that's all right. It's a way forward. I don't think anyone is going to be afraid, and we are going into a brave new world, and that doesn't bother me. What terrifies me is a self-appointed guardians and this high flaunting talk that a lot of people give who have no understanding of what happens. What are you talking about bureaucracy and politicians having rather corrupt lot? What about all the guys who go and give the bribe? The Patwari told me, he said, madam, ye log apna kagaz nahi late hain. We have asked for 20 papers, they bring 5 and then they offer us 30,000 rupees and say, ye kar do. The fault lies there also. It's not just the taker of the bribe.
Fair enough. The fault lies with the people also. And I am going to take a break. I am going to turn to the audience on that note when I come back after this break. Welcome back to the big fight. Let me now turn to the audience out here, and I just want to do some quick unscientific stat polling. Do you think there is a smear campaign taking place right now against Team Anna? Yes. All those who think, raise your hands. Okay, do you think that some members of Team Anna have also done things that are wrong? Yes. Okay, so there's a smear campaign and they've done something wrong. Okay, so you tend to believe like somewhere on the sidelines on this. Anybody with a comment here?
Gandhi, who himself would walk the talk before doing anything. So they have to set an example before carrying such a mass support behind them, before carrying this campaign which has legitimacy from all these people.
I think that's such an excellent point that if you're following Gandhian method, sometimes you have to be like Gandhi. Okay, the gentleman here.
I have a question for Mr. Maxwell actually. When any new enforcement agency is created with discretionary powers, as will be the case with the Jan Lokpal, won't that itself, create an avenue for corruption in itself?
Okay, fine. One final comment, the lady here.
Yeah, as a commoner, my concern is only not that who is coming to the platform to raise this issue, but I want to see something tangible out of this movement.
All right, final comments from everybody now. I'm going to start with you, Max.
Well, I'll just...
First of all, what the lady said there, that if you are to follow Gandhian politics, you have to be somewhat Gandhian yourself.
It's easier said than done. Not everybody can be a Gandhi. And I believe that whatever your walk of life, be you a criminal, on the issue of, if you are campaigning for something, you cannot be denied your right to campaign even if you are a criminal. So, okay, right to campaign. But that is one aspect. While supporting the anti-corruption movement, we wish those who are behind the movement, strength to their elbow, Godspeed, and let us win.
All right,
it is going to be a reality.
I'm going to get final thoughts from the rest of you also very quickly. Kabir, this entire focus which is now on Team Anna and the alleged wrongs that they have done, the differences between them, where do you see all of this ending?
Basically, I see nothing wrong with scrutiny. Whatever the motives, whether it's a smear campaign or not, I don't see any problem with that. If anything comes out in wrongdoing, let the law take its own course, let that sort it out. But to think that by discrediting members for what I call small indiscretions and try to discredit the movement is just not going to work. The movement has become larger than Team Anna. The movement has become larger than the will of the wishes of the government, and I believe that this movement will result in a strong Lokpal bill. The next problem, as we just heard, would be the problem of implementation. And electoral reform, but at least the ship is going in the right direction.
All right. Don't question small indiscretions, is what he's saying. Is there something wrong with that argument?
Don't throw the baby out of the bathwater.
No, I don't think the argument is wrong. I think the big picture has to be kept in mind, and the big picture is you now need to discuss the nuts and bolts of combating corruption. And the nuts and bolts are to be found in the discretionary powers that are being given to ministers. The nuts and bolts are to be found in serious electoral reforms. Okay. And the nuts and bolts have to be found, above all, in educating the people at large. Because once the people at large realize that paying a bribe doesn't pay, I think much will have been accomplished.
Shazia, final thoughts very quickly.
I think this has been the death knell of cynicism, this entire movement. And there has been some kind of a public stirring of consciousness in terms of participative.
You don't think cynicism is coming back now with all these questions being asked? The same people who are campaigning against corruption, unke khilaf bhi sawal uthte hain.
I think it's true. It's important that whoever is raising a voice against corruption must be seen as not corrupt, to say the least. And let there be no trial by media or by victimization. There indeed should be some kind of inquiry. If anybody accused of something of wrongdoing or some kind of unethical practice should be punished. Having said that, the cause is above individuals. And because there is such a public consciousness and awareness of this, it can't be fobbed off. And so the real issue remains the Lokpal bill and how to implement it and make it better. And democracy is for the people and by the people and with the people. So if they are part of the law-making processes, it's a great thing. And we'll see more of that in times to come.
And as long as Anna Hazare himself is not tarnished,
8 p.m.
And as long as Anna Hazare himself is not tarnished, nobody can question his legitimacy to lead the movement
I think
of the anti-corruption.
Remember what Karl Marx said, thank God I'm not a Marxist.
Okay, fine. Meera Patkar, final very quick thoughts from you, ma'am.
I think the movement has done a deepening and kind of widening of democratization. And that process of democratization has now entered into the law-making arena of democracy, which cannot be limited to the Lok Sabhas and the Vidhan Sabhas. It has to be with the Gram Sabhas and the Basti Sabhas. We must really join hands, find faults, no doubt, carry on the scrutiny, inquiry, punish the guilty. We will also be not beyond law and order and not beyond all the framework of corruption. But certainly we must be together to save this country from the corruption, from criminalization, from callousness, from corporatization and from criminalization.
All right,
ma'am. And communalism.
And communalism. All right, fine. It's a long debate. Before or after you're getting support from the RSS?
We're looking at a utopian state, huh?
Okay, fine. Let me not go down that route. Okay, Renuka Chaudhary, very final quick thoughts from you. We are flat out of time on this show.
All of us who are pontifying on corruption today and acting so self-righteous about the whole thing, where are all these voices when there is corruption on dowry? When girls are still dying, they're being killed. All those people in Ram Leela grounds who assembled gave dowries and took dowries. You know, and this is the tragedy of our time, that the travesty of justice that we talk about. You don't see giving dowry as a corruption. You don't see rape as a corruption of the system. You don't see any of those, and we go on band-bajawing on this.
I'm just trying to understand this. Are you saying that nobody should do anything but corruption until all other social ills are sorted out? Is that what you're saying?
Let me conclude. Vikram, let me conclude. You can't take away my time.
All right.
I'm saying corruption has to end with a social evolution where every citizen also reaches that mental state that I'm willing to wait my time in the queue, not jump the queue, not get admission for my daughter first, not do all this. All that is corruption.
All right.
We corrupt the system. We the people. We the people.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Renuka ji. Thank you all so much for being with us. That's it on this episode of The Big Fight. We'll be back again next week.